Hello, and welcome to Nighttime Fables, a haven where stories come to life under the gentle hush of evening, guiding you toward a peaceful night's rest. Tonight, we bring you another calming tale, one crafted to ease your mind and invite a sense of tranquil calm. But first, let's take a few moments to prepare both body and mind for a restful sleep. Make yourself comfortable, and with each slow inhale and gentle exhale, feel the day's worries slowly melt away. It can be challenging to separate from the bustle of the day, especially as bedtime nears. Yet remember, the less we fret about falling asleep, the more our minds can let go of lingering tension. Let the gentle flow of your breathing soothe any concerns and allow tonight's story to guide you into a deep, restorative slumber. Now get cozy and let the soft glow of nighttime fables envelope you. Enjoy this story, and may it lead you into a serene and restful sleep. Elara occupied a small table tucked into the bakery's corner, a perch right beside the window. Outside, the late afternoon bore an irascible temper. Autumn along the Maine coast clipped the days short. A brevity deepened this stormy afternoon by dark clouds galloping overhead. Disoriented by the premature crepuscular gloom, a few street lamps lining the thoroughfare beyond the glass had already flickered to life. Within, the scene couldn't have offered a starker counterpoint to the chill miasma outdoors. Though closing time loomed, the air was redolent with the solace of coffee and baking bread. The shop hummed quietly, nearly deserted save for a straggler or two securing last-minute provisions. A woman vanished through the door clutching a box of delicate cookies, destined perhaps for an intimate supper party. Periodically, the coffee machine hissed sibilantly, contributing its own measure of warmth to the space. Through the window pane, Ilara watched Main Street storefronts gleam against the encroaching dimness. A town-wide competition involving decorative scarecrows seemed underway. Jauntily clad figures of straw stood sentinel under awnings and in doorways, cheerful guardians against the Halloween-tide mood. They seemed perfectly placed amidst the miniature cyclones of fallen leaves that eddied in sheltered nooks. Around them, October's final tapestry surrendered its threads to the wind. Elara found herself back in this region, territory first scouted during summer explorations centered on the Rockland breakwater light. A devotee of lighthouses her entire life, she had spent recent months intermittently tracing Maine's coastline, visiting its storied beacons. That previous journey, however, had been curtailed. Obligations elsewhere had truncated her itinerary. Discovering her route would bring her close once more presented an ideal opportunity. A long-anticipated pilgrimage to the main lighthouse museum before continuing onward. The nearby Owl's Head light also beckoned, reputed to house one of Maine's last operational Fresnel lenses, and reportedly a vista of breathtaking scope. The museum's website proclaimed it the nation's largest repository of its kind, boasting an immense collection: lenses, foghorns, myriad historical apparatus. Following months immersed in research, encountering these artifacts firsthand, absorbing the detailed chronicles accompanying them, felt deeply rewarding. Models of renowned lighthouses, some previously studied, others personally visited, stood in miniature testament. Yet, it was the narratives of pivotal keepers and their kin that always resonated most profoundly. She had lingered far longer than intended, wandering the exhibits in blissful isolation. Tourist season had waned. Retrospectively, her timing proved impeccable. Emerging from the museum's warm solitude into wind-lashed streets had been jarring. Thus, she had sought sanctuary here, in the bakery. Her lodging for the night was an inn situated just outside town, and arriving before check-in felt premature. A cup of sweet milky tea provided the perfect rationale to ensconce herself in this charming establishment's welcoming corner before venturing down the peninsula. The bell above the bakery door chimed brightly as a final customer waved farewell to the staff, slipping out into the brisk October air. Pulled from her contemplation, Ilara knew her own departure was imminent. Taking another sip of tea, she retrieved a small notebook from her satchel, intending to refresh her memory on the essential facts of Owl's Head Light before tomorrow's visit. She nodded, scanning the details. Commissioned in 1825 under President John Quincy Adams's approval. Positioned on a peninsula thrusting into Penobscot Bay, just east of Rockland. Like many Maine counterparts, initially constructed of rubble stone, a cost-saving measure, undoubtedly. But its swift deterioration necessitated a sturdier brick reconstruction in 1852. The tower itself was rather diminutive, a mere 30 feet tall. Yet, its elevated perch, nearly 100 feet above the water, granted its beam significant reach across the bay. The modest fourth-order Fresnel lens, installed post-renovation in 1852, proved sufficient to cast its light approximately 18 miles seaward. As Ilara recalled from prior lighthouse visits, Fresnel lenses varied dramatically in scale. This was no giant. Draining the last of her tea, Ilara placed the notebook before her. The little lighthouse's history seemed relatively uncomplicated. Primarily, she anticipated the view. A quote attributed to Samuel Adams Drake, discovered in his book The Pine Tree Coast, had captivated her. Owl's Head ushers at once upon a scene almost too beautiful to profane with speech. When we are looking at it, impossible to find language to do it justice. Whether this held true amidst late autumn's dun austerity remained uncertain. Yet she was determined to witness it herself come morning. Ilara folded the notebook, tucking it into her bag. Rising, almost grudgingly, from her snug window haven, she cleared her table, donned her warm coat, and wound a soft scarf around her neck. Pushing the door open, she stepped back into the crisp embrace of the autumn weather. Now, nearly all streetlights concurred on the hour's lateness, casting a soft luminescence along the pavement. Ilara walked past the vintage theater's neon marquee, locating the spot where her car awaited. She slid gratefully into the driver's seat's comparative warmth, placing her bag beside her. With the engine humming faithfully and heat whispering from the vents, she activated the navigation, aiming the vehicle toward her refuge for this blustery night. The bed and breakfast lay nearby. Indeed, driving south as the towns receded, she passed a turnoff she recognized as the route to the lighthouse. Tonight, however, the allure was simply cozying indoors. First, glimpses of the harbor flickered to her left. Then the road veered slightly inland, flanked by dense thickets. A weathered sign, barely decipherable in the failing light, announced her entrance into the town that grew from sea and stone. Perhaps 10 minutes later, she arrived amidst a small constellation of houses and businesses clustered around a cove. Gratitude swelled for her navigation system. Addresses proved elusive in the near total darkness. Nevertheless, she located the correct driveway on her initial pass, pulling into an empty space. She might well be the sole guest, she mused. Elara opened her car door to a rising wind, retrieving her luggage from the trunk. Bowing her head against the gusts, she hurried onto the covered porch and pushed open the house's front door. Hauling her bags inside in one motion, she managed to pull it shut behind her, instantly sealing out the autumnal chill. She paused in the entryway, catching her breath. How old was this dwelling? Possibly a former farmhouse, she speculated. Not grand, but undeniably cozy. Her gaze fell to the rustic, wide wooden planks underfoot, then shifted through a nearby doorway into a living room where flames danced merrily in a hearth. A small desk stood before her, equipped with a bell. Before she could ring it, however, rapid footsteps approached from the house's rear. A woman emerged, casually attired in jeans and an apron, looking as though summoned directly from the kitchen. Beaming, she introduced herself as Martha, welcomed Elara warmly, and offered a polite apology for her informal appearance. Elara reassured her that formality wasn't expected, sharing a brief laugh. The distinct impression persisted. This was decidedly not the inn's peak season. The atmosphere, pleasingly relaxed, suited her perfectly. Martha guided Elara upstairs, showing her to her room. "You're our only guest tonight," she explained, "so I gave you the big room with the pretty view." Elara expressed her thanks, anticipating the morning revelation beyond the windows. Her host then extended an invitation for a light supper downstairs once she'd settled. "With no one else arriving," Martha added, "I thought you might enjoy a bite by the fireside. Does that sound agreeable?" It sounded utterly marvelous, Elara confirmed. With that, Martha departed, closing the door softly behind her. Elara surveyed her accommodation. It did indeed possess windows promising excellence, though the exterior darkness currently veiled any hint of the vista. Drawing the curtains against the night, she took stock of the welcoming space. A queen-size bed, centered, boasted a patchwork quilt and crisp white sheets. Hardwood floors, mirroring those downstairs, lent warmth, softened by an oval braided rug. An antique chest of drawers stood nearby, crowned by a charming old lamp casting a golden circumference of light. The walls wore wallpaper, adorned with a delicate floral pattern. The entire room felt both spacious and snug. She looked forward to reading in bed after supper. This was an ideal sanctuary for the night. Tidying her wind-tousled hair in the mirror and arranging a few belongings, she decided to venture downstairs. Hunger wasn't acute, but the fireside's allure proved strong. Book in hand, she left her bedroom haven, descending the slightly creaking stairs back to the living room. Several immense soft armchairs and a small sofa clustered around the fireplace. Elara selected one, sinking gratefully into its depths, captivated by the gently undulating flames. The room was tastefully appointed with bookshelves and intimate furniture groupings suggesting conversational nooks. A bay window presumably overlooked the street, though darkness obscured the view beyond. Street lights were sparse in this small riverside hamlet. After a few moments of quiet contemplation, Martha peeked around the corner, offering a couple of dinner options. Ilara gratefully accepted the proposal of seafood chowder and a green salad. Promising a swift return with a tray, Martha vanished once more. Ilara leaned back into the armchair's embrace, closing her eyes. The room's only sounds were the measured ticking of a nearby grandfather clock and the fire's soft crackle. Faintly, she could discern Martha moving about in the kitchen, opening and closing cupboards, seemingly located at the house's rear. It was fortunate Martha reappeared promptly with dinner, as Ilara, steeped in relaxation, felt sleep's gentle pull. Just before she could succumb, a standing tray materialized before her, bearing hot soup, oyster crackers, and a delicate green salad. While waiting for the soup to cool slightly, Ilara inquired if Martha would be dining as well. Martha replied she'd eaten earlier, but settled into a chair opposite Ilara, asking about her morning plans. Breakfast, she reminded Ilara, was included. During the discussion of breakfast arrangements, Ilara mentioned her lighthouse objective and her hope for clement weather. Martha nodded with approval, affirming the trip's merit. Of course, this time of year, you'll only see the lighthouse exterior. Tours won't be running tomorrow. She paused, then added, but the legends, they're truly the best part. Ilara paused, spoon hovering midair, an eyebrow arched. Legends, she queried, such as... Martha leaned forward, her eyes alight with mischief. You mean to tell me you've journeyed here unaware of the ghosts? In her extensive research into coastal lighthouses, their histories, keepers, equipment, this was the first mention of spectral inhabitants. Intrigued, she broke open her packet of oyster crackers and invited Martha to elaborate. Settling back into her armchair, Martha nodded as if merely awaiting the cue. With the fire casting dynamic shadows and the wind keening at the windows, she began. The thing is, Martha commenced, both spirits haunting the lighthouse are remarkably helpful. Anyone familiar with light keepers, with the unwavering dedication, knows they viewed their duties with utmost gravity. No obstacle deterred them from their tasks. For some, I suppose, this devotion extended into perpetuity. Two benevolent entities still stand guard at Owl's Head Light. The first is a former keeper, though his precise identity remains uncertain. Elara realized she was poised again, a spoonful of chowder halfway to her lips as Martha paused. She completed the bite, momentarily diverted by the chowder's exquisite flavor. Swallowing the rich, savory broth, she scooped another spoonful and awaited the narrative's continuation. With perfect timing, her host resumed. Various accounts describe footprints discovered in the snow, leading to the lighthouse, those of workmen's boots. Now, one might dismiss this. Any man could walk there in snow. But here's the peculiarity: the footprints invariably lead only in one direction. Martha spread her hands for dramatic effect before continuing. And upon following these tracks to the tower, astonished keepers have found the brass gleaming and the lens immaculately polished. Elara recalled all she'd learned about the sacrosanct nature of daily maintenance. Such spectral assistance, she knew, would indeed signify a spirit of exceptional helpfulness. Martha hadn't finished with the ghostly keeper, however. During the 1980s, she went on, a family resided at Owl's Head Light, including their 2-year-old daughter, Lily. Her father apparently discovered her out of bed one night, whereupon she earnestly declared, "Fog's rolling in, time to put the foghorn on." Anyone acquainted with toddlers knows they absorb peculiar phrases. Yet, the keeper and his wife swore they'd never uttered such words around little Lily. The warning seemed to spring from nowhere. Martha raised a finger. For years, within the keeper's house, Lily casually mentioned the presence of a bearded man, clad in a blue coat and seaman's cap. Elara realized she'd finished her chowder almost unconsciously, sheepishly placing her spoon beside the empty cracker packet. The tale of the spectral keeper was compelling enough, but curiosity now centered on the second spirit. Martha didn't keep her waiting. Naturally, those versed in lighthouse lore understand that operating a light station often required assistance from wives, even children. Elara nodded. Her research had certainly confirmed this. Martha continued her story. There's a benevolent presence many refer to as the Little Lady, seemingly dedicated to housekeeping at Owl's Head. Apparently, she enjoys rattling silverware in the keeper's house kitchen. She's also been linked to the spontaneous opening and closing of doors. Martha shrugged, conveying a degree of impartiality regarding this information. Then she added, a keeper in the late 1980s reported his wife glimpsing a woman in a white dress gazing from the windows. And their son insisted a lady favored sitting in a chair within his room. People say she emanates a peaceful aura. Her presence isn't unwelcome. Elara contemplated the two accounts. And naturally, post-1980s automation means there's no one living there to confirm. If the ghosts remain, she ventured. Martha nodded again, approvingly. Precisely. For all we know, the spirits are the sole entities maintaining a 24-hour watch to this day. Having now consumed her lovely green salad, Elara leaned back in the plush armchair, folding her napkin on the tray. Martha paused, inquiring if she might fancy some hot cider. Elara agreed cider would be delightful, and her host carried the tray to the kitchen to fetch their drinks. Sinking a little deeper into her seat, Ilara watched the mesmerizing flicker in the hearth, a warm languor beginning to infuse her limbs. Martha returned, bearing 2 steaming mugs. A delicious aroma of apples permeated the room. She placed a cup on the side table between them and resumed her seat. Then she began anew. Of course, my absolute favorite Owl's Headlight story involves no ghost at all. It concerns a remarkably heroic dog named Spot. At this, Elara's eyes widened. She lifted her hot cider, blowing gently to cool it. While waiting, she paused, inhaling the comforting, spicy fragrance, eyes closed in appreciation. Then she prompted Martha to tell her about Spot. Her host obliged readily. Back in the 1930s and 40s, a keeper lived at the lighthouse with his family, including 2 daughters, Clara and Sophie. Legend holds they trained their Springer Spaniel, Spot, to ring the fog bell by tugging its rope whenever a boat passed. It became customary for passing vessels to return the signal with a bell ring or horn toot. Spot held particular affection for the mail boat from Martiniquez Island. The mailman, Silas Croft, was known to bring Spot treats. Predictably, the dog always reacted to the unique thrum of his engine. Well, one ferocious storm night, snowdrifts completely buried the fog bell. Meanwhile, Silas needed that bell more than ever to navigate clear of the rocks at the cliff base. As the tale goes, upon hearing the mailboat's engine, Spot scratched frantically at the door to be let out. He raced to the shore and commenced barking furiously. Silas managed to whistle back in response, successfully steering around the treacherous rocks. Thus, Spot achieved hero status. He's no ghost, but you'll find him immortalized at the lighthouse. A plaque commemorates him there. Such a very good boy. Martha smiled at the memory of the plucky spaniel, sipping her cider. Elara smiled too. She savored the last of her steaming drink, setting the mug down. Leaning her head back against the chair, she regarded the fireplace reflectively. "I'm so glad I heard these stories before visiting," she remarked to Martha. "And to think all I anticipated was a view." Martha chuckled in accord. "You'll likely have the place entirely to yourself this time of year," she said. "You can visit Spot's memorial peacefully, and the weather forecast for tomorrow looks promising." Both women glanced toward the rattling window panes nearby, sitting in companionable silence for a moment, the old house creaking comfortably around them. Sensing perhaps the perfect moment for withdrawal, Martha rose and collected their empty mugs. She informed Elara that warm muffins and fruit would await her in the kitchen any time after 7 the next morning. With that, she offered a kind nod, wished her guest good night, and retreated once more into the house's depths. The fire's warmth and the chair's softness made the prospect of climbing the stairs to her bedroom seem daunting. Yet, the comfortable bed beckoned. Eventually, Elara roused herself from her spot in the sitting room and ascended quietly. The hour wasn't excessively late, but the profound darkness and wild weather outside lent bedtime an extra allure. After changing into pajamas and brushing her teeth, Ilara gratefully pulled back the cheerful quilt, nestling into the crisp white sheets. The bed proved immensely comfortable. Tucking the covers beneath her arms, she stretched nearly to the mattress's foot, exhaling contentedly. She made a brief attempt to read, but the words soon blurred. Within minutes, the effort to remain awake was abandoned. She extinguished the light and drifted onto a sea of dreams, lulled asleep by the gentle percussion of tree branches against the window pane. That night, Ilara dreamt of her visit to the little white Owl's Head lighthouse. In slumber, she conjured a sun-drenched autumn morning. Her imagined window view revealed a glittering river meeting the Gulf of Maine beyond the village. Sunlight performing a merry ballet upon the deepest blue water she had ever conceived. In this lucid dream, she descended to the sun-soaked farmhouse kitchen to discover a basket brimming with warm, crumbly muffins, accompanied by a steaming mug of coffee. She savored each bite, tasting the exquisite fusion of blueberries and the pearl sugar dusting the baked treat's crowns. Coffee steam wove through sunbeams at the kitchen table, fortifying her against the crisp autumn air awaiting outside. Then, as dreams often dictate, she was suddenly, magically, already in her car, luggage neatly stowed. She found herself driving a road leading north toward Owl's Head State Park. Dense stands of trees flowed past on either side. Some were evergreen. Many others displayed only autumn's final rusty orange leaves clinging sparsely to their branches. The sun reached eagerly through the newly bored limbs, claiming winter territory. Nearing her destination, the harbor waters sparkled to her left. Small boats chugged purposefully away from town on their daily errands. And then, arrival. She parked in a lot utterly devoid of other visitors. Stepping into the October air, Ilara followed a wide gravel path. To one side, she registered her elevated position on a promontory. To her right, the bay's waters peeked between trees, hinting at the panoramic vistas ahead. The lighthouse materialized before her. A neat keeper's cottage stood to her left. The brilliant white brick tower of Owl's Head Light crowned a steep incline. Stairs ascended sharply to meet it at the summit, an invitation seemingly heavenward. She climbed slowly, turned at the top, and released a sigh of pure contentment. The panorama unfurled, as magnificent as hoped. The grass-covered hillside faded to autumn's golden rust, yielded to the craggy headland plunging into the water. Beyond lay an expanse of churning depths, aqua and blue, stretching from horizon to horizon. In the distance, veiled by dissipating morning mist, lay land masses, peninsulas, islands. Ilara couldn't discern. She knew only this. In that breathtaking luminous moment, enveloped by the bracing salty breeze, she was merging with the history of Owl's Head. Drifting effortlessly through her dream, she stood there. Perhaps a minute, perhaps an hour. Eventually, however, she found herself before a simple stone marker inscribed, "Spot, the lighthouse dog." Reading this plain epitaph, etched forever onto this isolated hillside above the sea, Ilara smiled inwardly before waking, imbued with a comforting certainty. This unassuming beacon would forever possess faithful caretakers watching over it. Barcelona shimmered under an afternoon sun, the Mediterranean warmth gentled by a soft sea breeze sighing down La Rambla. Life spilled onto the main promenade, a vibrant current of enjoyment. For Elara, a ceramicist drawn from the sun-baked sprawl of Los Angeles, this marked her first full day immersed in the city's pulse, a gaudy pilgrimage charted in her mind. His visionary architecture had long captivated her from afar. Now, standing on Catalan soil, she felt an electric anticipation, certain this journey would infuse her own art with unimagined forms. Finding herself early for the rendezvous, hunger nudged her towards the tree-lined boulevard, an artery bustling with vendors and the seductive aromas of street fare. Tortilla de patatas, a simple, satisfying weave of egg and potato, called to her. A taste imprinted during college days spent working in a Spanish eatery. It was comfort distilled, wholesome and familiar. The last savory bite dissolved on her tongue, just as she spotted a guide hoisting a sign for the walking tour. Elara approached, her introduction mingling with the excited chatter of others converging, their voices alight with the prospect of witnessing Gaudi's marvels, especially the legendary spires of the Sagrada Familia Cathedral. Gathering them into a loose circle, the guide commenced, her words painting a portrait of Antoni Gaudi, born 1852 in Catalonia, migrating to Barcelona at 18 to chase architecture. His childhood fascination with nature's intricate geometries, the organic patterns unseen by most, became the lifelong wellspring of his designs. A man deemed solitary, even eccentric, yet possessing an ingenious perception of space and form. Craftsmanship, the guide emphasized, was indivisible from his vision. Ceramics, stained glass, wrought iron, carpentry, the dazzling tesserae of mosaics, all seamlessly integrated. Nature, faith, and geometry formed his trinity of influence. He spearheaded modernism, Catalan modernism, in the late 19th century. Yet his relentless innovation shattered the confines of any single style, constantly probing the frontiers of the possible. Obsessed, driven, Gaudi poured himself into his work until his final breath. Now, decades later, his name resonated globally. 7 of his creations honored as World Heritage Sites, magnets drawing pilgrims like Elara from every corner of the earth. A brief pause for questions punctuated the narrative. Then, the small procession ambled down the wide pedestrian way. The breeze whispered through the plane trees, carrying the delectable scent of cinnamon and sugar from a churro stand. Elara, yielding instantly, secured a warm, ridged loop of fried dough. Closing her eyes, she took a crunchy, sweet bite, a smile of pure contentment blooming on her face. Their initial destination, Palau Güell, erected between 1885 and 1890. This mansion, Gaudi's inaugural commission from his enduring patron, Eusebi Güell, rose in a coveted city district on a street pioneering paved surfaces and drainage in Barcelona. It served a dual purpose, sheltering Güell's extensive family and hosting glittering soirees for high society. The residence pivoted around a sumptuous central hall, the stage for Güell's entertainments. Guests arrived via horse-drawn carriages, passing through imposing iron gates. While steeds were stabled below, visitors ascended to the receiving room. Externally, the Palau presented a somewhat restrained facade, a stark contrast to the opulent interiors. Within the main party chamber, perforations in the ceiling allowed lanterns to hang, mimicking a star-dusted firmament, a hallmark of Gaudi's inventive flair. Yet, even in its relative exterior simplicity, creativity flourished. Stone, iron, and ceramics melded expertly, evoking the grandeur of Florentine Renaissance palaces. The entrance portals bristled with symbolism, hinting at strength and the Catalan cultural and economic resurgence. Though representing his nascent career, Palau Güell already showcased elements Gaudi would refine. His masterful, inventive manipulation of space, an approach wedding aesthetics to function, and the clear signature of organic motifs drawn directly from the natural world. Moving on from Palau Güell, Elara felt the afternoon sun warm her skin, the texture of the ancient street distinct beneath her soles. A profound gratitude washed over her. To be here, finally, tracing the steps of an artistic titan. Next loomed Casa Batlló, a metamorphosis Gaudi orchestrated between 1904 and 1906. Its owner, Senor Batlló, had granted him absolute artistic freedom, resulting in a radical reshaping of the facade and an interior transformed into pure artistry. Locals dubbed it Casa dels Ossos, the House of Bones, its structure possessing an uncanny, skeletal fluidity. Gaudi's nature-inspired motifs grew ever more sophisticated. Tree trunks, bone structures. He translated the lexicon of the wild into functional elegance. Straight lines were scarce in Casa Batlló. Curves reigned supreme. Much of the facade shimmered with trencadís, vibrant mosaics crafted from fractured ceramic tiles. The roof, a cascade of iridescent scales, undulated like the spine of some mythical dragon or ancient beast, imbued with a whimsical fairy tale aura. It seemed poised to stir, to launch itself into the Barcelona sky. Speculation linked symbols woven throughout the house to the legend of Saint George, slayer of the dragon, patron saint of Catalonia, and other underdog realms. The ground floor echoed this surreal charm. Irregular oval windows punctuated flowing stone walls, conjuring a sense of expansive movement. Despite the organic, almost liquid forms, the design remained startlingly functional, pioneering techniques far ahead of their time. Gaudi, it was said, anticipated architectural innovations by a century or more. His work defied easy categorization. Art Nouveau, Gothic Revival, Modernism were labels applied, yet none contained his genius. He was a true innovator, demonstrating an advanced grasp of structure and form, revitalizing older styles through novel techniques and aesthetics. His creations were efficient, dynamic, wildly imaginative, visually captivating, yet tethered to no single doctrine. A reverence for nature, organic shapes, and harmonious, playful design became his enduring signature. Emerging from Casa Batlló, Elara felt incandescent with inspiration, awestruck. The House of Bones. Its uniqueness, its sheer beauty, surpassed any photograph, any description. It felt like wandering through an exquisitely crafted gingerbread house, sophisticated yet enchanting. As an artist, she savored the paradox. its playful eccentricity fused with brilliant functionality and design intelligence. She lingered, gazing back, attempting to etch its image onto her memory. A light gust ruffled her short hair across her face. With a small skip, she hurried to rejoin the group ascending the avenue. Casa Mila followed, an apartment building constructed between 1906 and 1912, distinguished by its undulating, self-supporting stone facade. This structural innovation permitted larger windows, flooding the apartments with natural light and allowing unprecedented flexibility in interior layouts. Its unconventional appearance earned it the nickname La Pedrera, the stone quarry. In the early 20th century, Passeig de Gracia was Barcelona's showcase boulevard, lined with iconic, exclusive edifices. Here, the city's wealthiest denizens commissioned the most renowned architects, each vying to create a statement piece, a monument to their status. True to form, Gaudi designed Casa Mila with a prominent curving terrace and a rooftop populated by sculptural chimneys. Some resembled chiseled blocks, others evoked honeycombs or arabesques. While fulfilling essential architectural roles, these were veritable sculptures clad in fragments of marble, lava, and ceramic. Materials Gaudi salvaged and repurposed. His meticulous attention to detail, the seamless marriage of function and fine art, was palpable. The design of Casa Mila embraced the curve relentlessly, inside and out. It comprised two buildings structured around twin courtyards, illuminating 9 stories. The layout resembled an asymmetrical figure eight, each courtyard unique in size and shape. Another testament to Gaudi's continuous evolution and self-referential innovation. From La Pedrera's terrace, the Sagrada Familia, Gaudi's magnum opus, and their final destination pierced the skyline. A palpable thrill rippled through the group. Elara had glimpsed its distinctive spires etching the horizon since her arrival. But proximity promised a different magnitude of experience. The walk to the basilica was considerable, allowing the guide time to unfurl its history. Construction commenced in 1882, she explained. A year later, the original architect resigned and Gaudi assumed control, profoundly altering the project's trajectory. Infusing the plans with his unique synthesis of Gothic and curvilinear Art Nouveau. Though he would devote the remainder of his existence to this colossal undertaking, at his death in 1926, less than a quarter stood complete. Progress crawled, reliant solely on private donations. The Spanish Civil War brought interruption and devastation in 1936. Revolutionaries damaged the structure and partially destroyed Gaudi's original plans and models. Nearly 15 years were spent painstakingly piecing together fragments of the master model, delaying significant work until the 1950s. Gaudi, foreseeing he wouldn't witness its completion, meticulously crafted detailed models to ensure his vision's eventual realization. This foresight fueled the dedication to faithfully restore his designs after the war's ravages. His ambition for the Sagrada Familia was staggering. To encapsulate the entire narrative of the Catholic faith within one edifice. A devout Catholic himself, he aspired to erect the perfect temple, chronicling the life of Jesus and the history of faith. Decades later, construction continues. Upon completion, It will reign as Barcelona's tallest structure and the world's highest church. They were close now. The basilica's breathtaking singularity asserted itself as they entered the adjacent plaza. Ilara felt her skin tingle, her heart executing a distinct flutter. She paused, needing a moment, drawing deep breaths to anchor herself in the overwhelming presence of the building. Years of anticipation culminated in this instant. She refused to let it blur past. Breathing in, breathing out, she offered a silent thanks for this extraordinary, once-in-a-lifetime immersion. The guide's voice grounded them, decoding the spectacle. 3 facades, 18 towers, each consecrated to a significant biblical figure. The spires and the Nativity facade culminated in geometric, almost cubist forms, echoing artistic currents popular in 1930s Spain. An hourglass motif recurring throughout the Sagrada Familia provided both structural integrity and visual rhythm. Ilara found herself mesmerized by the towering, intricately carved stone spires ascending towards the heavens. They reminded her, whimsically, of colossal pointed churros crowned with sculpted finials. The exterior alone pulsed with such distinct personality. Eagerness surged within her to step inside, to discover the magic held within its walls. The threshold crossed, Ilara was enveloped by an astonishing interplay of light and color. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, fracturing into kaleidoscopic patterns across the stone, creating an ethereal, sensory bath of wonder. Turning, she saw the interior columns soar like ancient trees, their branches fanning out across the vaulted ceiling. Gaudi's intention? A stone forest, a sanctuary where humanity might feel closest to the divine. The engineering required to manifest this vision felt almost miraculous. Consistent with his earlier works, straight lines and flat surfaces were banished from the Sagrada Familia. Gaudi treated every volume as sculpture. Here, columns transitioned from square bases to octagons, then helicoids, ultimately resolving into circles. Geometric forms intersected, generating constantly shifting surfaces. The intricate details, wrought iron railings, spiraling staircases, ornate embellishments, flowed with exuberant curves and inventive flourishes, as if space itself had erupted into art. Ilara moved slowly, deliberately, through the basilica's vast interior, striving to absorb every incredible detail, every spark of genius. It was unlike anything she had ever encountered, endlessly fascinating, profoundly inspiring. Here, she could perceive the culmination of Gaudi's lifelong experimentation. The church felt simultaneously structurally sound, harmoniously balanced, and aesthetically transcendent. An immense devotion to detail and craftsmanship radiated from every surface. The organic, nature-drawn elements were woven seamlessly into the grand tapestry. His unwavering dedication resonated too. She recalled the guide's words about his struggle for funding, his perseverance through civil war, vandalism, economic hardship, and personal trials. For the final 43 years of his life, Gaudi remained utterly consumed by the Sagrada Familia's design and construction. Today, the basilica stands not merely as an emblem of Barcelona, but as a global icon, drawing millions. It was and remains a profoundly complex, innovative and masterful testament to artistic vision and architectural prowess. The guide gathered them for a final farewell, encouraging them to linger, to savor Gaudi's masterpiece and its myriad secrets. Elara readily accepted the invitation. She drifted back towards a stained glass window, watching the refracted light paint shifting mosaics on the stone floor, feeling the colors dance upon her skin. She wanted this sensation to deepen, to imprint itself. Closing her eyes, she drew slow, full breaths, feeling the sun's warmth, striving for complete presence. Quietly, fiercely, Ilara expressed her gratitude for this luminous day, wishing she possessed the power to halt time, to remain suspended forever in this mesmerizing, sacred space.